Welcome everyone to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Mraz. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating, how to navigate through it. Now, I know you might not be able to see me. It's bad lighting on my end, but I want to make sure that Dr. Karen gets seen better than I am. So, and let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Karen. She's a sex and relationship therapist working with couples, thruples, polyamory, and people in platonic relationships. She helps dozens of people each year move past divorce and breakups to build true, loving relationships. In addition to her sex and relationship therapy practice, she is a highly successful woman who has to heal from her own traumatic breakup. She found love a year and a half ago on a yoga retreat where she didn't want to go. She wasn't even supposed to be on it. He lives in the UK. She lives in Los Angeles. They married in March of 2025.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And he's moving, and he moved to the States already? Did he?
Very recently, yeah. Just here in the end of December.
Look at that. So, well, anyway, Dr. Karen, thank you so much for being on People on
Thank
Dating.
you.
How are you?
That's a great way to describe me. Yeah, there's a couple little tweaks in there, but yeah, it's perfect. I wasn't supposed to be there. That is definitely true. Thanks for having me.
Again, no, it's my pleasure. And like I was telling you before the recording, you know, I guess I'm a little skeptical about love now because of some of the relationships I've been to. But you and a friend of mine went. He met his future wife on an app. Yeah. Which I'm not a fan of dating apps. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Dr. Karen, first of all, thank you so much for being on People of Dating.
You're very welcome.
And before we get on, no, it's my pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like to become a sex and relationship expert working with couples, thruples, polyamory? What was that journey like?
I'll give you the very brief story. So I'm from Michigan, and I'm from like a very traditional part of Michigan, you know, like farm country where everybody's still married. It's just very traditional. Picture Midwest, and that's where I'm from. And I learned at a very young age that, you know, relationships start falling apart. And, you know, I guess the short version is I wanted to help couples either stay together or find love. And so I went out to wonderful California, where I found a professor that really followed and had a lot of the ideas I did, which is, you know, to be able to be true to yourself, to remain an individual inside of your couplehood, to be able to work through the process, to be able to deal with the tough questions. The process is called differentiation. And so that was kind of the beginning of my career and how I became more in sexual therapy. I'm not afraid to answer anything. I'm very comfortable with sexuality. And I think it's such a huge part of our lives that seems like it's the first thing that gets lost. When a couple gets in a fight, sex goes out the window. When, you know, they're mad at each other or they use it as a weapon in certain ways, it goes out the window. And that's when I see the couples start separating and falling apart. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. With the polyamory world, that literally fell in my lap. Probably close to 10 years ago, I had a couple did not tell me they were polyamorous until well into our work. And we started doing some excellent interventions and work, and they kind of introduced me to their community through referrals. So then I started doing a lot of research on it, and I became very comfortable. And it seems like it's kind of a niche practice for a lot of people, but it's becoming so much more popular.
Yeah, I have heard about it. I even see, I think, TV shows that are promoting polygamy and all that good stuff. But, you know, and today's a good subject, right? Moving past divorce and breakups. I've never been married, but I had my plenty of breakups and things like that. And Dr. Karen, are we seeing more and more couples, more and more people, whether they are millennials or Gen Z, are they moving past the marriage stage and just, you know, I read and hear about hookup culture and women being more sexually liberated, but also now the guys are seeing how the women are acting and they feel that they could go on a date and then just bring them home, either date number one or date number two.
Sure.
Are we seeing the death of marriage, or at least it going down? Because I'm reading that now more and more people are getting married later in life. Instead of in their early 20s, now it's 29, 30, 31. So
definitely in the big popular cities, you know, you can kind of look at it coastally. So New York, New York, Miami, Los Angeles, all the coastal cities have always had a higher age bracket. So for instance, I'll just make it up because I don't know the actual statistic. Let's say in the Midwest, Kansas, Michigan, Ohio, maybe the average is say like 20 to 23 for the average person getting married. I know for sure on the coastal cities, it's anywhere from females getting married between like 28 and 31 and men like 29 to 33. The coastal cities often are where people go to advance their lives, have a different education level. And that's not to say the Midwest or the South or even the North doesn't have that. But statistically, yes, people are getting married a lot later. People are having less children. So to answer your question, yeah, I think that, do I think marriage is ever going to die? No, I don't. I think there will always be marriage. Do I think the number of marriages per year are going down? Absolutely. And I think people are moving more towards, I would describe it as more towards the European style of life, where it's, I love you, you love me, we don't need a paper, let's just be together. And they have the formal commitment between themselves. They may do a ceremony by themselves, but there's not that legal document or the pressure of the actual marriage.
Okay, yeah, because I'm seeing too where women are becoming more independent, and I remember when I see these other podcasters talk about independent women, and I'm looking at it like, what will be the plus and minus of a woman that says she's independent? And I don't see much. If a woman's independent, I'm cool with, I guess because of my age. I don't even think I ever thought about them when I was younger, because again, you seeing that, and women are becoming more sexually liberated, and they feel that they could control their own destiny, which I'm fine with. But Dr. Karen, again, so you got the divorce, you got the breakups, and one of the things, the recovery, right?
Yeah.
In your practice and in your friendships, is the recovery taking longer for a certain sex, or is it about the same before they go out and start dating again? Because it depends who I talk to. Some could go out within a couple of days.
Absolutely.
Some, it might take months. So yeah. So if you could dive into that.
Absolutely. I think the recovery process is different for everybody. I think what happens is that, the stereotypes you can look at. You could look at every romantic comedy or something where the horrible scene is the woman sitting there eating a pint of ice cream, crying and holding her cat, for 6 months after a man. That can be true for both sexes. I have had plenty of big, strong, healthy men sitting on my couch, literally in a ball of tears because, a woman didn't call them back, or their wife left them, or they cheated, or whatever it may be. I don't think there's a true gender part of it. I think that breakups are challenging for literally everyone, but it all depends on how you handle the breakup, what the length of the relationship is. And part of my psychological work is talking about attachment styles. So the folks that you brought up that are like, yeah, they broke up on Friday and on Monday they're going on a new date. That person has a very different attachment style than the person who is, had 3 dates and got ghosted and can't get out of bed for 2 weeks. Those are two then those are drastic situations. But what I mean by attachment styles is that some people I'll give you the kind of the archetypes, average person, we're all trying to seek love and connection if you're out in the dating world. So an avoidant attachment style will be that person who's kind of the push-pull. Maybe they run in, maybe they're the love bomber, maybe they're the one who thinks that they want something. Then when they receive the love, then like, whoa, I'm good. And then that's when the breakup might happen. So then they're the person who can rinse and repeat. The person maybe that has anxious attachment style or has already had trauma around dating will take considerably longer. So that exact same person who's been on the 3-4 dates, gets ghosted, they could fall into, frankly, a relatively serious depression. They may challenge themselves. What's wrong with me? Oh my God, I'm going to die alone. I can't believe this. And the spiral down the hill. So that's where we have to look at our individual styles. And there's nothing right or wrong about either of them. But I would think a healthy way to process a breakup or a divorce would be to really look at both sides of it. There's the clear-cut ways of it. Even in ghosting, I mean, this ghosting culture we have right now is insane because of the apps. I think people don't value connection as much because everybody's just a picture. We're having a video chat right now. Like, I don't know you. We're not connected in that way. And that's how I think people see dating right now.
It's funny that you say that because I was going to bring up, and I think it's a perfect segue. Are we relying too much on that dating apps and the social media to connect with people? Because it seems like nobody wants to, even me in my 50s and 60s, I remember I met this woman about a year or 2 years ago and exchanging numbers. Oh, let me get your Facebook page. And it took me like a second or two to react. I'm like, Oh, okay, sure. I'm like, wow. So not even a conversation among older people.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seems that might be dying down. And I'm always one for connection and talking to people
Sure.
face to face.
Hmm.
Again, so going back, are we relying too much on the apps to do our talking for us? Because like I said, there's ghosting. It could be easier to ghost. Well, I could just
Absolutely.
block them. I could block
Hmm.
her, and I don't have to
Yeah.
talk to her, and
Yeah.
not confront or avoid the confrontation.
Well, I think that yes, I think the apps definitely make life easier. I'm gonna give the apps a pro and give the apps a con.
Okay.
I am one I am one of the people who got to my point with the apps, and I said I am absolutely done. I will never, and I never logged on again.
Okay.
I logged off for my very last time about 4 or 5 months prior to meeting my husband, and I would never go back. Even if I became single tomorrow, I wouldn't go. That's here nor there. So I think the apps are a great way to expand your horizons. I think they're good because so many of us live in a pretty isolated world.
Yeah.
There's all this stereotypes like go to the gym, meet somebody, go to church, go to the grocery store. It's hard to meet people. So if you look at the apps for what they are an endless supply of people that you can either talk to, hook up with, properly date. It's all depending how you present yourself and how you do the weeding through. The apps are
Hmm.
also really bad because you're exactly right. It is an endless supply of people. So if I don't like your hat today, I might block you. I'm like, nah, he's not for me now. So it's a rinse and repeat. So I feel like people are coming across as much more disposable than if you meet somebody in person. To your point, this
Yeah.
woman that you were speaking with wanted to see your Facebook. Like, is it A, to make sure you're a real person? Maybe she's been ghosted. We don't know what her background and her trauma was. Or honestly, maybe she wants
Right.
to stalk you and she just got it out of the way. Like, I want to see who your friends and family are, how you spend your spare time. Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah, yeah. It's just amazing how, and I see whether they're in their 20s or even up to 50s, it's just texting and the
Yeah.
apps and all that, and it's just like the connections. And I read around, magazines and all that. They even speed dating or
Hmm.
singles events are dying down, where
Yeah.
women do go to these, but men are not going to them. I guess
Yeah.
I guess it
I've
depends
heard
on
that
the
too,
city. I
actually. No,
guess.
I've heard the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it seems like it's more of a competition between the sexes than trying to work together and make something of it. So, Dr.
Yeah.
Carroll, again, in your practice, you have a couple that's got divorced, and some, like I said, you might have a man that's crying because he can't get over it. Same thing with a woman.
Sure.
What are some steps that a guy or a woman can take to at least try to get back out there? If my question made any sense.
It makes complete sense. When you're saying get back out there, I look at that in two different ways. I think that I like a bit of isolation right after a breakup. And what I mean by that, I don't
Mm,
mean, lock the doors and pull the curtains. I mean, being with yourself, taking that time to properly heal. You know, I look at it as a huge red flag. If you've been married for 10 years and, next week and you're taking somebody new on a date, that's a red flag for me. And that should be a red
okay.
flag for the person that you're on a date with because it is a trauma going through divorce. Even in the absolute worst case scenarios, you still built a history with somebody and you still had love at one time. But if not, there's unprocessed anger there. So take a little time for you. What is the stuff you used to do prior to being in a relationship? What are those things that you wanted to do that, maybe you're a golf guy and your wife didn't want you to go golfing more than twice a year. Go golfing once a
Mm,
month. Grab the buddies, go do something. For the ladies, like, is there something that she wants to sit there and watch reality shows and she could never do it. The point I'm making is to take care of yourself, spend time with friends and family, spend time with people that love you. Try not to dwell on the divorce. And I know that sounds very ridiculous because, of course, that's what's going to be on your mind. But
right.
going through the process of, oh, should I have said this? Why did he say that? What could have happened? If it's done, it's done. If your relationship is over, it is time to move on, but be gentle with yourself. A lot of people give themselves arbitrary deadlines. Oh, I got divorced on January 1st, so by June 1st, I'm going to be out there. See what that feels like. Are you ready to even go to a coffee shop by yourself in March? Are you ready in April? There's no time frame. And I know that sounds like a very psychology answer, just kind of, but there's no time frame per person. You just have to be able to when you feel okay. I think that, I have witnessed myself a lot of people that will go on that first date after divorce or after a big break. I'm like, that was the worst thing I've ever done. All I could do is think about so and so. I can't believe this. I'm never going to meet somebody. That's a clear indication you're not ready. Okay, so then you start, join that club, hang out with your friends, go visit that family member you haven't seen in a while. Keep working on you. The biggest advice I can give somebody is to really process their side of the divorce. Everybody, there is always two people at fault. Yes, there often is a clear-cut person, whether it's the person who filed or it's the person that was betrayed. There is a clear-cut person who's often responsible for the divorce. But we have all played our parts in this relationship. You know, was there a time, could in the stereotype, could the man say, you know what, I could have taken her on a couple more date nights. All she wanted was flowers on Valentine's Day. Okay, maybe I could be a little softer in my next relationship. For the female, like all he wanted was a home cooked meal. He wanted a little more sex. Why didn't I do that? Thinking about what your part of the relationship was and looking at that as a strength opposed to a hindrance for the next relationship.
Well, and it's funny because it seems like we got to do more self-reflection.
Yeah.
And we talk with Dr. Karen Stewart, and maybe up to my early mid 50s, I just never self-reflected. This one last relationship I was with, I remember leaving the apartment because we had like an Airbnb together. But at that time, our relationship was pretty much dead. There was no physical contact. I figured that I did a few things to turn her off, and I take blame. I don't even blame her for anything. And even if I saw her now, I would be very cordial. How you doing? How's everything? How's your mother? I would. I have no ill will because it was my fault because I said yes to everything. I made myself available. But the thing is, Dr. Karen, was more of the financial aspect because there were some things that she asked and I could feel it in my stomach that it was, this is not right. This is not right. And I was right about it because I ended up losing a lot of money. But I wanted to make her happy. But I'm telling you, Dr. Karen, when I walked out of that Airbnb and I'm walking maybe a half a mile to go to the train station, and I just started thinking, what did I do wrong? What was I? And I just started. I started reading books. I started looking at podcasts, and I realized, okay, I did this wrong because. No, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Most women don't want a yes man. They want someone to at least challenge them or at least stand up for themselves. Yeah, I can see you smiling, Dr. Karen, so go ahead.
I think in your particular situation, it sounds like you didn't like what you saw in your self-reflection. When you're talking
Definitely not. I agree. 100%.
I was a yes man. You brought up finances, so maybe she wanted to do certain things that maybe, let's be frank, you maybe couldn't afford, but you still did it to make her happy. But your gut said, "Oh, come on, just say no. We can't do this. We can't do X, but we can do Y." So you probably built up a little resentment on your side. You did these things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. So, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I just want to get this out. And I remember there was a third time that she came to me for a financial reason. And I remember I'm on the phone, Dr. Karen, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? What am I? And I came up with a bunch of curse words in my mind, and I said no. I said no. No. You do it, or have someone else, whatever. And I finally said, you know what? That's it. No more. And I could hear in her voice she was disappointed, but at the same time, I didn't care, Dr. Karen. I felt it was just too much. It was I was overextending myself for someone that didn't love me, and I could take that. I swear to God, I could take it. The financial aspect bothered me more than anything. So go ahead. Sorry, Dr. Karen. I went on a tangent.
So do you feel that maybe she was taking advantage of you? Is that how you felt?
I hate to say it that way, but when she came back to a third, and that's when I said, "Oh, okay, now she's trying to stick it to me and taking advantage." Yeah, 100%. First 2 times, no. First time, no. Second time, I felt a little queasy in my stomach, but I still did it. The third time, definitely, I said no. This is not. This is not even helping me. It's more helping her. And
so
she had a son
the moral of the
from
story
a previous relationship.
Yeah, maybe the moral of the story is to listen to your gut, and maybe that relationship could have been solved or could have been saved if there could have been conversation about it. Maybe if you would have talked about your feelings, like, so and so, I got to be honest, like, I'm really feeling uncomfortable. You're asking me for money again. Can we talk about this? What's going on with your finances? I can't afford to help you this time. So what's going on here? Maybe that would have saved it if you wanted it to be saved. But I think that's, again, when we talk about self-reflection, that would be your side of the street to look at and to clean, to say, did I act in a certain way? But it sounds like that relationship did run its course for you.
Yeah. And I like again, going back and self-reflecting and I said to myself, and this was June of 2020. It's like I can remember the date when I'm walking.
Sure.
And I said, okay, I got to work. Yeah, I got to work on myself. This is what I got to do. And I want people to know, and Dr. Karen, maybe you might agree, that it doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're 20s to the 50s, 60s, you can still go through a bad relationship.
Absolutely.
But also reflect and say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to do this again. And you just said it, if I'm correct, don't bring it to the next relationship.
You're going to try not to bring it to the next relationship.
Exactly.
Try. We all have done things in our relationships that we can probably cringe at, right? It's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that, or I can't believe that happened. The work there is to not bring it into the next relationship. And if you really want to get, deep into your psychological makeup, a lot of us bring triggers from our childhood homes, whether that is, regardless if your parents were married, divorced, separated, you live with grandma. Everybody has the way we learned how to love and the way we received love from those very formative years. So maybe you're somebody, maybe she was somebody who always had to ask for help, and that's the way people gave her love. Maybe she didn't receive love through physical touch or through words of affirmation, but maybe it was more like, she asked for something like, if I get that dolly for Christmas, then I'm loved. So maybe that's where she felt so comfortable with the financial aspects of your relationship. But that would be her work to work on. But your work to say is that I'm worth more than giving. I want to be able to receive too. And I want to be able to have a mutual love in my relationship.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I know she went through some early childhood trauma. I remember she told me about it. And obviously to me, well, I could be wrong. It might have extended to as she got older. Because again, on occasion, she would still bring it up. And now, when I talk to some of my friends, I do bring up the financial aspect. And I'm okay that she didn't like me that way or love me that way. I'm fine. I can move on. But again, it always came down to finances for me because of that particular relationship. But again, Dr. Karen, it woke me up to realize, okay, I'm not a bank. This is what I have to do. And like you said, try not to bring it to the next one. So anyway, first of all, Dr. Karen, so far, I was going to say so far, so good. And first of all, Dr. Karen, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. Before I let you go, anything else you want to promote? Anything you want to talk about? Your TED Talks, Oprah, book tour?
Well, I got Oprah on hold right now, but besides that, no, I'm actually in the process of working with a group right now to get my own podcast.
Nice.
So once it's up and running, I'm working on kind of copywriting the names and everything. I will let you know. But you can always go to my website if you want to further talk, or Instagram. It's my name, which is just drkarenstewart.com, which is drkarenstewart.com.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in the show notes. And before I let you go, one last word about relationships.
Of course.
And breakups and divorce.
Of course. One last word?
Yeah, well, few words.
Okay. I think that a lot of people, especially the younger generations, we brought up, the Gen Zs and the younger, I think a lot of them are much more fluid than the older generations. Generation X, I think, is the first generation to experience divorce. So I think all the below are, much more of the divorce culture than the previous generation. So pay attention to your relationships. Think about what you truly want. Marriage really is a commitment. It may not be for everybody, but you still deserve monogamy if that's what you want, or just to be able to really express how you want your relationship to be and own what you want. You don't have to do what your partner wants.
No, I love that. Anyway, Dr. Karen, again, thank you so much for being on People Today.
Wonderful to meet you.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, my pleasure. Bye-bye.